What up, y'all? Corey here. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the 3 stages of content creation and how it's going to help you generate more leads for your health business. If we haven't met before, I provide marketing services for health-related business owners because it is my goal to help as many health entrepreneurs to build a business that fits their lifestyle. So why are we talking about content creation? Well, if you own a business, which if you're listening to this podcast episode, I'm assuming that you do or want to, then it is really important that you understand how to generate leads for that business. Everyone always talks about referrals and word of mouth, and I fully agree with the fact that those are very powerful and very useful and should always be the backbone of how you generate leads, because it's saying that you provide a really good service, which ultimately is leading to more clients and customers. But here's the problem though. What do you do when all of a sudden you're not getting referrals? And how do you predict when you get referrals? Are you just going to keep reaching out to the same people that you've already served and ask them again and again and again for referrals? Maybe, but probably not a great strategy. A better strategy is to have multiple ways of generating leads. And one of those, if you're not in the game of content creation, I would say you're probably massively missing out. Whether it's free content, whether that's through YouTube videos, a podcast show like this, writing a newsletter, creating social media content, or paid content where you're paying for advertisements or spots on newsletters or other podcast shows or those sorts of things. Either way, it's a really, really great form of generating and getting more leads. And so the point of this episode is to cover what I believe are the 3 stages of content creation and how you should work through each one of them in order to have the best opportunity to generate leads and to stay consistent with your content creation. And a lot of this was honestly birthed from the fact that I've been living on a farm for the last 30 days. And so I ran my own personal experiment as to 30 days of content creation, which is exactly what we're going to get into on this episode, the lessons learned and those 3 stages of content creation that I'm going to provide for you today. All right, stage number 1 is the age-old question of quantity versus quality. And I can say without question, if you are in the very first stage of content creation, in other words, you're just getting into this, I can say hands down, it is quantity. You should be putting out as much content as humanly possible. I decided, since living on the farm, to do 30 days of content creation. Now today, as the recording of this podcast episode, I'm on 32 days. It is officially the last day on the farm, but I've been creating farm quote-unquote content for the last 32 days. You can check out my Instagram and see every single post if you want to see what's been going on. But it was literally just an experiment for me as to see what would happen if I created farm content for 30 plus days on the farm every single day. And I will tell you what happened. Number 1, the process got a hell of a lot faster. Number 2, the videos got much better, which you can see if you look at how many views where each video was getting. They continue to increase, and there were certain ones that got a lot of views for whatever reason, but those weren't later until I started creating more and more content. And the third thing that I noticed was that I started to get into rhythm and having a lot more fun with the content creation process because I just created a habit around it. I would record something in the morning, I would edit it when I got done feeding the animals or whatever the case might be, and then it was already published by 10 a.m. most days. There's exceptions to a few days where I got busy, but for the most part, I got into a really good rhythm with it. And so what's the lesson here? The lesson here is that stage 1 of content creation is literally just creating the habit. It's just getting into routine of regularly creating content and putting it out into the world. And the trick here though is to pick one platform and one medium. So I created Instagram Reels, video Reels, every day for 30 plus days. It could be anything. It could be writing on LinkedIn. It could be posting in a certain Facebook group. It could be writing a newsletter. It could be recording a podcast show. It could be a YouTube video. It could be whatever you want. But the point is just to pick one platform and one medium. And what I mean by medium is there's written video and audio. So pick whichever one that you're most comfortable with and just get into the rhythm of creating content. And that's really important for stage 1 because all you're trying to do here is just create the habit of creating content on a regular basis before you worry too much about all the bells and whistles and how you're creating content. So that's stage number 1 of content creation. All right, stage number 2 of content creation is quality. This is where we start to talk about how are we actually making the content better. So after I started creating content on the farm for roughly 10 days, I would say, and I was starting to get into rhythm, I started to consider what was working and what wasn't working. And at this point, I at least had data to look back on. So I started looking back at some of the other posts that I started doing. Damn cat. I started looking at other posts that I was doing, and I noticed which ones were doing well, which ones weren't doing well, and I started to decode what was working and what wasn't working. and I try to pull apart why it was or wasn't working. And here's a few things to think about when you're looking at what's better. Is it a good idea? Is the hook really good in terms of like the initial intro? Are the transitions, this is video, so were the transitions good from one clip to the second clip? If it's writing, transitions still apply of like from one block to a second block of text. Those things actually matter a lot. And I would say at this second stage of content creation, where I was starting to think a lot more of quality in terms of how can I get 1% better with every single video, I did admittedly start to notice. Like I said, if you look at some of the videos, there were videos that were getting, I think they're at 13 or 14,000 views, which in retrospect to the original videos that I was posting, I was only getting maybe 1,000, 2,000, which is like literally how many followers I have on Instagram. So nothing really to speak about. I mean, granted, in the grand scheme of the world, yes, that's a lot of eyeballs to see your content, but in relation to how many followers I have on there, not very many. But my point is that stage number 2 of content creation is this is where you're starting to think about how can I get a little bit better. If you're familiar with Mr. Beast, he's the biggest YouTuber on the planet. I think he has 300 million followers, I think, on YouTube. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure that's what the number is. And he still talks about every video, he's just trying to get a little bit better. And he's been doing this for, I think, like, last I checked, 13, 14 years or something like that. I guess I don't even know how long YouTube's been around, but he's been doing it for a very, very long time. And over that course of time, he's started to lean more and more into quality. And he's actually specifically said is that he doesn't care how often he puts out videos anymore. He just wants it to be the best video. And I think there's a lot of truth in that statement, especially in content today, is that the quality content is just going to continue to rank above people who are just pumping out a bunch of stuff. But hear me out here. I don't want you to think that that means only create quality content, because if you're just starting out, it's just quantity. It's just getting in the reps. It's learning how to do it. It's creating the habit around it. But once you have the habit, then we can start to talk about quality. How do I make this better? How do I better hooks, transitions? Maybe the idea needs to improve a little bit. But that's stage number 2 of content creation, is where you're really trying to consider of like, how is this useful and how is this providing value to people? On a final note on this quality piece too, I recently learned about the 3 Fs. It's fun, feelings, and facts. Those are really good things to think about when you're thinking about, is this a quality piece of content? If you could have all 3 of those into a post or a video or a blog or a podcast or whatever it is that you're creating, that's really, really, really valuable. But think about that in terms of quality, as facts, feelings, and fun creates high quality content. All right, stage number 3 is amplification. I'll be honest, I don't think most people really get to this step, or in often cases need to, depending upon what kind of business you're building. So this is where you take the content that you've already created and you've noticed is doing well, and you just amplify it. You redistribute it. So you take what in my case was an Instagram reel and you post it on Facebook or maybe TikTok, because it's literally the same piece of content that I could just literally copy paste. Doesn't take a lot of extra energy, and I can get in front of more eyeballs. I want to say this with a caveat though. Don't let this be a distraction from creating that really good one piece of content on one platform. Because if we start trying to amplify and distribute too quickly, it quickly becomes a distraction from what we're really trying to do here, is create a really good high quality piece of content on one platform. I personally believe, you can take this with a grain of salt, that you can really only grow on one platform. That doesn't mean you can't distribute on other platforms, depending upon if you have a massive team. If you have a massive content creation team, maybe this is a different conversation, but I'm assuming that you don't have a massive content creation team. And if that is you, then I believe that you can only really grow on one platform, whether that's Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever your thing is. And then the other ones are really just distributing and getting in front of more eyeballs, and I wouldn't worry too much about them. That's literally what I did with this 30 days of content creation, is I focused purely on Instagram Reels, and then I would repost it on Facebook. And honestly, all the posts on Facebook, if you want to go look at it, got very little views or engagement. And that shouldn't be surprising, because every platform has different norms and different things that work and different things that don't work. So just taking one piece of content and plopping it on another platform, you shouldn't really expect it to do that well. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, because you can get in front of more eyeballs, obviously, and for very low effort, get in front of more people. But the other way to think about amplification too is that everything can be changed mediums. So those videos, for example, could be changed into text, or a YouTube video or a podcast like this could be turned into a blog, or a blog could turn into a video. I'll be honest, my form of content creation, if you want to know, is literally writing. Everything starts for writing for me. A lot of these videos come from my newsletter, and then that gets redistributed into podcasts, YouTube, other short form contents. For me, everything starts with writing, but that's just my style of doing it. But the point is that you can always change mediums from video to text to audio and etc. and back and forth, and even across platforms. Again, I want to say this one more time, is that this third stage of content creation, of the amplification, don't get hung up on how well you're doing on other platforms. Still just focus on growing on one, and then allow it to amplify onto other forms that maybe capture some more eyeballs. So just as a final recap of the 3 stages of content creation, is stage number 1 is to focus on quantity. Just get into the rhythm of creating content. Stage number 2 is now you start to think about quality, trying to get 1% better with every single piece of content that you create. And then the third stage, which honestly most people don't get to, or you probably even shouldn't worry about it depending upon where you're at in your business or content creation journey, is to think about amplification. How do I redistribute it across different platforms, even in different forms of media, whether it's text to video, etc., etc. I hope this video is helpful. If you own a business, or for that matter, if you don't own a business and you're not creating content on some form, whether it's free or paid, I do think you're missing out on a massive opportunity, because at the end of the day, attention is the gold rush of today's world. And if you can get good at capturing it, you'll have a lot more opportunities than anybody else in the marketplace. Like I said, my name is Hiben. I have a marketing agency that has services for health-related business owners to help them attract new leads. If there's any other topics or videos or even guests on the show that you want to see, please let me know. I love engaging with my audience. Love you guys. Peace. Hey friend, thanks for listening to the show. And if you have any feedback for me about the show or any other guests that you'd want to see in the show, definitely shoot me a message. I love engaging with my audience and figuring out how I can provide the best value possible to the people listening to this show. Before you go, I only have one ask of you, and that would be to check out my 3 Tips Tuesday newsletter. It's 3 marketing tips every Tuesday specifically for the health and fitness entrepreneur to help them attract new leads. If you press the link in the description, it'll take you directly to the archive of all my previous newsletters, and you can decide for yourself if it's something for you. If you end up finding it helpful, you can just sign up for the newsletter and you'll get it in your inbox every Tuesday. Thanks again, and keep hustling, my friends.